My child, have you ever sat in the quiet of your room, holding your phone, and felt the heavy weight of a conversation that just stopped? It starts with a few hours of waiting, which then turns into days, and eventually those days stretch into long, empty weeks. You look at the screen, hoping for a notification, but the silence just stares back at you. When someone you once shared your life with suddenly disappears into the shadows, your heart begins to ache with 1,000 different questions. You might find yourself wondering if you said something wrong or if you did something to push them away. You might even start to wonder if you ever truly mattered to them at all. This feeling of being left in the dark is one of the hardest things a person can go through because it leaves you without an ending. We live in a time where everyone is reachable with just a single tap on a screen. Because we are so connected, the absence of a message feels even louder than it used to. It feels like a loud, crashing noise in a quiet room. But what if I told you that this silence isn't just a lack of communication? What if I told you that this quiet period actually has a deep, hidden meaning that you need to hear? Today, we are going to look at 3 deep truths about what it really means when someone stops calling or messaging you for a long time. By the time we are finished, you won't see this silence as a way they are punishing you. Instead, you will see it as a message that you need to decode using your inner wisdom rather than your fear. Before we dive deeper into these truths, I want to ask you something. Have you ever experienced a time when someone's silence hurt you more than their words ever could? Please share your story in the comments below so we can support each other through these quiet moments. The first thing we have to understand is that silence is often a form of clarity. When the noise of daily chat stops, the truth begins to surface. It is very easy to make excuses for people we care about. We tell ourselves that they are just having a busy week at work, or that they are probably exhausted from their responsibilities. We all have lives that are filled with stress, family duties, and health issues that take up our energy. However, the reality is that we all make room for the things that truly matter to us. Even in the middle of a chaotic life, a person who values you will find 5 seconds to send a text just to say they are thinking of you. They will find a way to call you for a minute on their way home or send a quick voice note before they go to sleep. When someone consistently chooses not to reach out, despite having the same 24 hours in a day as everyone else, it is a silent declaration. It is a way of saying that right now you are not at the top of their list. This is a very painful truth to swallow, and it might sting when you first realize it. But understanding this is the only way to find your freedom. If you keep waiting for a message that never arrives, you are giving away your power to someone who isn't even holding on to it. You have to realize that people invest their time where they feel an emotional reward. If speaking to you brings them joy, excitement, or a sense of comfort, they will naturally return to you as a source of that happiness. Neglect is rarely an accident, it is almost always a choice. When someone decides not to pick up the phone, they are making a decision about where you fit into their life. This choice reveals the truth of the relationship more than any promise ever could. While it hurts to admit that you aren't a priority, this realization is actually a gift. It allows you to stop chasing after a ghost. It gives you the permission you need to stop staring at your phone and start looking at the people who are actually standing right in front of you. Instead of wasting your energy on someone who is choosing silence, you can redirect that love toward the people who see your worth and want to be a part of your daily life. While it is true that silence can sometimes be a sign that you are not a priority, we must also look at the other side of the coin. Because not every period of quiet is a form of rejection. Sometimes, the people we care about aren't pulling away because they don't love us, but because they are currently walking through a storm that no one else can see. We have to remember that life is often very difficult and carries heavy weights that can crush a person's spirit. There are times when someone might be dealing with a deep, personal darkness like depression, which makes even the simplest task, like replying to a text, feel like trying to move a mountain. When a person is mentally and emotionally exhausted, they often don't have the energy left to explain why they are struggling, so they simply fall into a long silence. They might be facing financial problems that fill their every waking moment with anxiety and fear about the future. Perhaps their family life has become a source of constant chaos that leaves them feeling completely drained and unable to offer anything to the outside world. In the world of psychology, this behavior is often referred to as avoidant coping. Instead of reaching out for help, when things get hard, some people feel a deep sense of shame or a need to protect others from their pain, so they choose to isolate themselves instead. They don't stay silent because you don't matter to them. They stay silent because they are drowning in their own life, and they simply don't know how to reach out for a hand while they are struggling to stay afloat. If you are currently waiting for someone to reach out, take a moment to consider their situation. Have they mentioned any recent difficulties or stresses? Does this sudden silence seem completely out of character for them, compared to how they used to act? Some people are naturally more private and prefer to suffer in quiet rather than opening up to others. If this sounds like the person you are thinking of, then their distance is likely a reflection of their own inner battle and has absolutely nothing to do with their love for you. It is a cry for help that is disguised as distance, a way of surviving when they feel they have nothing left to give. In the comments below, let me know if you have ever been the person who went silent because life just became too much to handle. How did it feel when someone reached out to you during that time? Understanding this truth changes the way we react. Instead of feeling hurt or angry, we can choose to offer a heart of compassion. However, there is a very important balance you must maintain. While you can extend kindness, you have to realize that you cannot always be the one to rescue them. You can send a soft, gentle message to let them know you are thinking of them and that you are there if they ever need to talk. You can offer them warmth and a safe place to return to, but you cannot force them to open up or fix the problems they are facing. True healing and the decision to reconnect must come from within them. It has to be their choice to step back into the light. Sometimes your role in someone's life is not to chase them down into the shadows or try to pull them out by force. Instead, your role is simply to hold space for them. To hold space means to keep your heart open and your presence warm, so that if and when they finally find their way through their struggle, they know you are still there waiting with open arms. It is about being a steady light in their life, without letting their darkness extinguish your own joy. You are showing them that your friendship is a safe harbor, not another obligation they have to worry about fulfilling while they are already overwhelmed. This type of silence requires a great deal of patience and a lack of ego. It asks us to put aside our own feelings of being neglected so that we can see the pain in someone else. When we stop viewing every silence as a personal attack, we gain the wisdom to see the human being behind the screen, a human being who might just be tired, scared, or lost. By choosing to wait with grace rather than reacting with bitterness, we honor the bond we shared and give the other person room. They need to breathe and heal. This is a higher form of love that prioritizes the well-being of the other person over our own need for constant validation. There is another truth we must face, and it is perhaps the most difficult one of all to hear. Sometimes, silence is not a sign of busyness or a temporary struggle, but a sign that the relationship has reached its natural conclusion. This is a reality that many of us try to run away from because it feels so final. We want to believe that every connection we make is meant to last a lifetime, But the truth is that silence is often the final chapter of a story that has already been written. Not every person who enters your life is meant to stay there until the end. Some people are like seasons. They come into your world for a specific reason, perhaps to teach you a lesson, to provide a certain kind of love for a time, or to help you grow in a way you couldn't on your own. Once their part in your journey is finished, they begin to drift away into the quiet. It hurts deeply because you still carry the memories of how things used to be. You remember the days when your phone would buzz constantly with their name on the screen. You remember the late-night talks that lasted until the sun came up, the good morning texts that started your day, and the good night messages that made you feel safe before sleep. Now, when you look at that same screen, there is only emptiness. It feels like a void has opened up, where a person used to be. However, you must realize that silence in this situation is not an act of cruelty. It is actually closure in disguise. It is the universe's way of letting you know that the cycle has completed itself. Think about the wisdom of the psychologist Carl Jung, who suggested that when two personalities meet, it is like the contact of two different chemical substances. If there is any reaction at all, both people are permanently changed and transformed. Perhaps that transformation was the entire purpose of your connection. They weren't meant to walk beside you forever. They were only meant to awaken something inside of you that was sleeping. Once that spark has been lit, their role is done. If you try to hold on to someone who has already let go, it is like trying to clutch a handful of water. The harder you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers, leaving you feeling even more empty and frustrated than before. Before we explore how to move forward from this, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a relationship or a friendship that didn't end with a fight, but just slowly faded into silence? How did you learn to accept that it was over? Please share your experience in the comments so others can learn from your strength. Learning to release someone is a vital part of your own personal growth. When you accept that a door has closed, you stop wasting your precious energy trying to peek through the keyhole at a room that is now empty. You have to trust that every ending in your life is making space for a new beginning to take root. When one person's silence finally closes a door, life is already preparing to open another one for you. This new door will lead you to connections that are filled with voices that do not disappear, and love that does not vanish into thin air. It will lead you to people who offer the consistency and warmth that you deserve, rather than a cold silence that leaves you questioning your worth. The pain of a finished relationship often comes from our resistance to change. We want things to stay the same because the familiar feels safe, even if it is no longer healthy or fulfilling. But nature shows us that nothing stays the same forever. Trees drop their leaves so they can survive the winter and grow new ones in the spring. In the same way, we must drop the connections that have withered so we can prepare for the new growth that is waiting for us. Silence is the signal that the season has changed. It is the quiet moment before a new song begins. If you find yourself in this position, try to look at the silence with gratitude instead of resentment. Be grateful for the transformation they brought into your life. Be grateful for the lessons you learned and the moments of joy you shared. Then, take a deep breath and let them go. Release them into their own life and their own silence, knowing that your path is now leading you somewhere else. By letting go of what was, you give yourself the greatest gift possible. The freedom to discover what is yet to come. You are not losing a part of yourself. You are simply making room for a better version of your future to arrive. When you stop chasing a person who has already moved on, you reclaim your dignity. You stop being a spectator in someone else's life and start being the main character in your own. you begin to see that your value was never tied to their presence. Your worth is something you carry within you, and it doesn't decrease just because someone is no longer there to witness it. This is the moment where you decide that your time and your heart are too valuable to be spent waiting on a ghost. You choose to walk forward, with your head held high, ready to meet the people who are currently looking for someone exactly like you. Now that we have uncovered these 3 deep truths about silence, the real question remains, how do you actually live with this knowledge? Knowing the truth is only half the battle. The other half is deciding how you will carry yourself forward now that the mystery has been solved. It is one thing to understand why someone has disappeared, but it is another thing entirely to change your own behavior in response to that absence. Your reaction to silence is a reflection of your own self-respect and your understanding of your own value. When you know how to respond with wisdom, you no longer feel like a victim of someone else's choices. Instead, you become the master of your own peace. If the truth you have discovered is that you are simply not a priority in that person's life, the most powerful thing you can do is stop the chase immediately. We often chase because we are afraid that if we stop, the connection will die forever. But you must ask yourself, if a connection only exists because you are the one doing all the running, is it really a connection at all? When you stop chasing, you aren't being petty or mean, you are simply protecting your dignity. You are choosing to stop pouring your energy into a vessel that has a leak. Letting go gracefully means you don't need a final argument or a grand exit. You simply stop making yourself available to someone who only treats you as an option. This process of letting go requires you to be very honest with yourself about where your energy is going. Every time you check your phone for a message that hasn't arrived, you are giving away a little piece of your power. Every time you draft a text and then delete it, you are staying stuck in a loop of waiting. To break this loop, you have to decide that your time is too precious to be spent in a waiting room. You have to redirect that focus back to your own life, your own goals, and the people who actually show up for you. By choosing not to chase, you are making a silent declaration that you know what you are worth, and you are no longer willing to settle for less than you give. I want to pause here for a moment and ask you, what is the one thing you've been doing to try and fix everyone else's silence? And are you ready to let that go today? Leave a comment below and let's encourage each other to reclaim our energy. On the other hand, if you believe the silence is coming from someone who is truly struggling in their own world, your response should be one of compassion, but it must also include very clear boundaries. It is a beautiful thing to be a supportive friend or partner, but you must be careful not to lose yourself in the process of trying to save someone else. You can extend a hand and you can offer a listening ear, but you cannot jump into the deep end of the ocean and drown alongside them. Being present for someone who is in a dark place is an act of love, but you must remember that you are not their therapist or their savior. You are a human being with your own needs and your own limits. Setting boundaries with a struggling person might mean that you send a supportive message once every few weeks to let them know you care, but you stop expecting them to be the person they were before they hit this rough patch. It means you stop letting their lack of response dictate your mood for the day. You can hold space for them, but you must also keep living your own life. You have to understand that their healing is their own responsibility, and no matter how much you love them, you cannot do the work for them. By setting these boundaries, you ensure that when they are finally ready to return to the light, you will still be healthy and wholly new. To welcome them back. If the silence indicates that the relationship has reached its natural conclusion, Your task is to accept the ending as a necessary part of the cycle of life. We often view endings as failures, but they are rarely that. Most of the time, an ending is simply a sign that you have learned everything you were supposed to learn from that specific person. Accepting this truth allows you to stop fighting against the current of your own life. When you stop resisting the ending, the pain begins to soften. You start to see that the space left behind by that person is not a hole, but a clearing. It is a place where something new can finally start to grow. Trusting in the future is essential during this stage. You have to believe that new connections will bloom exactly where the old ones have faded away. The universe does not leave voids for no reason. When someone's silence closes a door in your life, it is often because there is someone else waiting to meet you further down the road. Someone whose voice will be a constant source of joy and whose presence will be consistent. By accepting the silence as a final period at the end of a sentence, you give yourself the permission to turn the page and start a brand new chapter. You are trusting that the story of your life is still being written and that the best parts are yet to come. Above all else, the most important response to silence is to ensure that it never silences your own sense of worth. It is so easy to let someone else's absence make you feel small or unimportant. You might start to think that if you were better or more interesting, they would have stayed. But you must reject those thoughts with everything you have. Your value is an inherent part of who you are. It is not a reward given to you by someone else's attention. Your beauty, your strength, and your presence do not fade just because one person stopped noticing them. You are a complete and whole person all on your own, whether your phone is ringing or it is completely silent. True wisdom is knowing that you are the sun in your own solar system. People will come into your orbit and they will leave, but you remain the center of your own world. When you realize this, someone's silence becomes much less scary. It stops being a reflection of your flaws and starts being a reflection of their journey. You can watch them walk away with a heart full of peace, knowing that you are still standing on solid ground. Your worth is unshakable, and the right people, the ones who are meant to stay, will always find a way to make sure you know it. As we reach the end of this journey together, there is one final powerful truth you must carry with you into the world. You must never, under any circumstances, allow the silence of another person to silence the music within your own soul or diminish your sense of self-worth. It is so easy to fall into the trap of thinking that if you were just a little more attractive, a little more successful, or a little more interesting, they would have stayed. But the reality is that your value as a human being is not something that fluctuates based on how often your phone lights up. Your worth is a constant, unchanging truth that you carry inside you from the moment you are born. Your presence in this world does not become weaker just because someone else chooses to walk away from it. When you find yourself standing in the quiet of a faded connection, I want you to remember that your beauty does not fade just because someone has stopped noticing it. Think of a sunset or a hidden waterfall in the middle of a deep forest. Even if there is no one there to see it, the beauty remains just as breathtaking and just as real. You are exactly like that. Whether someone is there to witness your light, or whether they have chosen to close their eyes and walk into the dark, your light continues to shine with the same intensity. Your value is not a prize that someone gives you, it is a foundation that you stand on. In this final part of our reflection, I want to ask you one last thing. Looking back at everything we have discussed, what is the most important lesson you have learned about your own value during times of silence? Please leave a comment below so we can celebrate your growth together. The universe works in ways that often feel mysterious and confusing to us while we are in the middle of the experience. We see the silence as a loss, a hole, or a failure. But from a higher perspective, that silence is often a clearing of the path. It is the removal of noise that was preventing you from hearing the voices that were always meant to stay. Sometimes, the people who leave your life are simply making room for the people who are currently searching for someone exactly like you. People who will offer you a love that does not vanish and a consistency that does not grow cold. By clearing away the connections that no longer serve your growth, life is making space for a future that is more aligned with your true self. The next time you realize that someone hasn't called or messaged you for a long time, I want your first reaction to be a deep breath, not a surge of panic. Do not let fear drive you to beg for attention or to chase after someone who is moving in the opposite direction. Chasing only serves to lower your own vibration and keep you stuck in a cycle of desperation. Instead, hold your head high and remember that silence itself is a clear and honest answer. It is an answer that tells you exactly where you stand, and more importantly, it is an answer that sets you free. It frees you from the burden of wondering, from the exhaustion of waiting, and from the pain of trying to force something that isn't meant to be. When you accept silence as an answer, you stop being a prisoner of hope, and you start being a person of action. You gain the freedom to keep walking toward the people who will never let too much time pass without reaching out to you. You begin to attract people who value your time as much as you value theirs. This is the ultimate gift of silence. It filters out the temporary so that the permanent can finally find you. You are moving toward a season of life where your phone will be filled with voices that are steady, reliable, and warm. You are moving toward connections that feel like home, where you never have to wonder if you matter because they will make sure you know it every single day. Thank you for spending this time with me and for having the courage to look at the truths behind the silence. If you found value in these words and feel that they helped you see your situation in a new light, please consider liking and sharing this with someone who might be struggling with a quiet phone today. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so we can continue this journey of wisdom and growth together. Remember, you are worthy, you are enough, and you are never truly alone, even in the silence. Keep walking your path with confidence, knowing that the right voices are already on their way to you.